Well, hello everyone, and welcome to a wonderful Sunday night TLP Live. Hey, Paul, how we doing?
Happy Sunday, Dan. Happy Sunday, everybody. How's everybody doing? How are you doing, Dan?
I'm doing well. It's been a nice afternoon. We had some family over, did a little barbecuing out back. So, yeah.
Very nice. Yes, it's been really lovely here. And I got to tell you, Dan, the Midwest at this time of year, man, it's been beautiful. Watching the leaves turn, you know, it reminds me of growing up, and that's one area I do love. You know, in New York, the trees. Well, there's not a lot of trees in Manhattan, so it's really great watching the leaves turn. It's beautiful.
Yes, absolutely. It's that time of year. So, what's going on at the theater this week? Anything special?
You know, it's a lot of the things that we've been doing. We're doing right now we are finishing up the scene shop reorganization. We're doing the paint department now, and we're making sure that the paint department's going to get set up for success. And then once that's done, we're going to move into the offices. And we've got that new drafting table that we had on the wishing well item that someone bought from the gala. We're going to have that, and a big shout out to Mike Shore, our current board president, who bought us the paintbrushes, and we're going to get that all set up. So that should be hopefully, knock on wood, completed within the next week, and we should be completed with the scene shop reorganization.
Very good, very good. Well, you know, this week we've been pushing a couple of events. First of all, we have a big golf outing next week. It was kind of nice. Jay Upman from JJ and Freddy's gave us a call a few weeks back and said, you know, Dan, we really miss TLP. We know just how important TLP is, and we'd like to help. So I'm going to put together a golf outing for you. You guys don't have to do anything. We're going to do it for you. So they have been organizing this golf outing, and it's next Sunday, a week from today. So golfers out there, if you're interested, jump on our website. It's got all the information, and you can click there and get your ticket for the Chili Cup golf outing at Lake Carroll Golf Course next week.
And it has been great weather for golf, Dan. I got to tell you, I think that's a really great idea, and I might even get out there and try to putt around a little bit myself.
You should do that. You should definitely get out there and do that. Watch next week. We're going to have a few silent auction items. There's a gorgeous. I don't have a picture of it yet because it's just been designed. But there's a gorgeous metal sculpture of the TLP logo that the sign shop in Mount Carroll has designed and is making, and that's going up for auction. So, if any alumni who would like the sculpture, or some of our patrons who would like that sculpture, jump on bid on that. And of course, great dining packages from JJ and Freddy's. I believe there's some things from Molly's that are coming on. We're going to put up a basket with 2 subscriptions. We're going to do another concert basket. So there'll be some things worth your while. Take a look at.
That's great, Dan. That's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah. And speaking of events, we've also been, this weekend was the last weekend of Remote Control with Max Major. That's the virtual mentalist show that we have been co-proing with In the Box Productions. And again, we had Max Major on the show last week. He was really fantastic, and I've been hearing great things from our patrons about the show, Dan. So that's really fun. That's really good.
It would be nice. If any of you are out there and have seen the show, please let us know. Paul and I haven't seen it yet. We decided we were going to watch it Sunday, and then we figured out that it starts during this show. So we're going to run up and watch the last hour of it after TLP Live closes. Actually, Paul, I have it going right now on a second computer sitting here on my TLP computer desk.
Oh, well then, there you go. But maybe Max will actually reach out to you, and you could just say, hey, Max, say hi to everybody at TLP Live right now.
Yeah, I could do that. I don't know how that would work because I've got the sound off, but we'll see.
I've got Felicia upstairs. She's got her popcorn ready, and she's waiting for the show to start. She's really excited about watching that. And, we have been hearing good things about it. I know that my mom's a big fan of this show, and she bought a ticket, and she texted me today saying that Max was absolutely fantastic. And so, the big thing that we want to do here, Dan, again, is we're testing, the waters of this brand new space, streaming and virtual programming. And, in COVID, we can't gather yet. We can't do what we love to do. Broadway just got announced that they're not going to be opening back up until earliest June 1st of 2021. And so, we're looking for feedback from our audiences, finding out, is this kind of programming that you like? What would you like to see? If you didn't like that, is there something that you would like to see? So, hit us up in the chat box next year, send us an email. Let us know what you think of that kind of programming. We want to hear from you.
And hopefully next week we'll have a lot of information about our virtual Christmas show, because again, a lot of that, it really has to do with whether or not our audiences will enjoy that medium, because it takes a lot of work for us to put together the virtual show, as we found out during the gala. And, if it's not something we're interested in doing, we need to know that too. But We'll test it out, see how it goes, and hopefully, oh man, we are sure hoping we'll be up and going by May next year. That's the goal. And if everything goes the way we're hearing, and there's a vaccine, and we start getting that out, and start getting to the point where we can get to some kind of social norm again, we'll be all ready to go. And
I tell you, Dan, I'm going to stay cautiously optimistic here. I know that in our industry, we've been fortunate enough to be included in a lot of national panels. It's from all of the top theater leaders around the country, and we're all hanging on hope that next May summer, we should be able to get back to do what we're doing best, especially in the regions, because again, some of the reasons that Broadway is not going to be able to open up is, Manhattan. So there's that, and everybody comes, gathers there. And then also those Broadway houses, they were built very small to crunch in a lot of people. And I think that the way that the Broadway economics work is that they're not able to really function unless they're able to sell those theaters out. So, a lot of the conversations that we've been having is that the regions probably will be safe to open before Broadway. And I do believe, especially at Timberlake, where we have a nice spread out campus, that we should be okay. So hanging on hope, fingers crossed, we're going to do our 21 season like we normally know how to do it.
And speaking of our 21 season, let's take a quick look at it.
Nice. It's a good season. I get excited whenever I see it. I'm like, yes, that's a really good season. And tickets are available right now on our website. We've been getting great feedback on our website as well, right?
Subscriptions are available. We won't have tickets on sale yet until the first of the year, but subscriptions are on sale, and they are still at the low price. I cannot believe this. $105 for a 6-season subscription. And $125, you can add the $20 to get the 7th show, the buddy show. You can't get a deal like that any place. I was kind of taking a look at some of the other theaters, and Timberlake is such a good deal for theater goers. And this year was supposed to be the year that we were going to raise prices. But we figured with the COVID and everything else, this was not the time to come back to everyone and say, hey, we're up in prices this year. So our subscription prices are staying the same. We've got another week to get that special $105 deal. And then next Monday, a week from tomorrow, they go back up to the regular prices. And
that's like four, that's 6 shows for the price of 4. I mean, that's
even at full price, it's $1 less than 6 shows for the price of 4. So it is a
kind of a no-brainer. So if you
Yeah.
haven't already done so, get your season subscription. And you know what? I got to tell you, Dan, I do want to thank everybody out there that have been so generous with giving, making sure that they, they've either donated their season tickets from this year to next year. They've given a gift. They've given a monetary gift. They've given some kind of a gift to help us either renovate the cabins. Once again, the TLP community is throwing its arms around TLP and making sure that we stay safe and we survive this. And thank you all so much for giving and keeping TLP in your hearts. We do appreciate it. Believe me, we really do. Thank you.
That's absolutely right. It has been an amazing fall with people being generous, donating back their tickets, not asking for refunds. I mean, that could have really hit us hard this year. And
some theaters did. Some theaters got hit pretty hard with those refunds, and our patrons were really there for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Our refunds were at about 12%. That's amazing. It's amazing. Some theaters were hoping to be at 50%, and our TLP folks really came through for us. And if that's not enough, we have a big concert series all booked for next year. Let's take a quick look at our concerts. Well, that's an amazing concert series, I tell you. And the bands that are coming out here on the May, I can't remember the date, the 13th, I think it is, whatever that Saturday was, with Johnny Rustler and the Beach Bums, and then at night it's the Sounds of Summer. It's a Beach Boys group. They're out here for our first annual summer kickoff party. We're gonna have a big kickoff party. The Beach Bums are going to play outside during the day. We've got food and games and all sorts of things on the lawn, and then the other band will be inside the theater that night, the Beach Boys band. So that's going to be a great night. And of course, we are set up with our Beer Fest, or our fall festival featuring Beer Fest, and we're again working with Heartache Tonight to make sure they're free that day so they can be out and perform for us again. 2 years ago, or was it? No, last year. Yeah, just last year, they sold out their evening concert. So we added an afternoon concert, and they sold out the afternoon concert. We had over 900 people here for our fall fest in our fall craft beer festival. So we'll be doing that again next year. And of course, the boys' night out. I can hardly wait to see what that does to the theater. But those tickets are on sale right now. So if you're interested in getting your concert tickets, go ahead and grab those, get your seats, and be ready to go.
It's going to be great. Ever since we started to do the concerts, Dan, it's been a really great, again, adding variety to the programming, the kind of music that we're bringing in. I mean, it's a little something for everybody, isn't there? You've got the Buddy Holly and the Beach Boys. You've got the Rosie and the Riveters that are the Rivets that are playing kind of a rockabilly. You got the boy band. I mean, so really there's something for everybody, and we want to try to include everybody, every age group. So come on out, and that's going to be fun.
We've had a lot of requests for the Beatles group, so we have Brit Beat this year, and of course also the Blues Brothers. They were a fabulous band last year, so the Blues Brothers are able to come back and spend some time with us. And the Buddy Holly band features Kieran McCabe, who was a resident company member here for 2 years. So just all in all, a lot of exciting things.
That's great.
And speaking of exciting things, education department, we got a great grant from the Freeport Community Foundation to fund our fall education program. And our fall education program will have we'll continue with our virtual on-site lessons. We'll have virtual classes, and but the focal point of the fall program is with area schools. And we've had interest from West Carroll. We've had interest from Eastland School and from Polo. And any other schools that are interested, just get a hold of us and we'll talk to you about what kinds of things we do. It looks like it's going to be a lot more virtual than we had hoped. Mount Carroll just went on a virtual hiatus for 2 weeks, so they're totally doing instruction from home for the next 2 weeks, and that's kind of happening to a lot of schools. So we'll be ready for that. We'll be ready to help support that. So contact us at the theater, and then we'll get back to you, and we'll set up a meeting. Probably at this point, a virtual meeting, and see what it is we can do with you. So it's our programs are absolutely designed around the school's needs. So we're looking forward to getting that started. And our teaching artists are going to be on site in the next couple of days. So it's ready to go.
I tell you, I think it's important to mention, Dan, and this is just my opinion, of course, but I really think that, we talk about essential workers. I do believe that the arts are essential. I think that, in case in point, if everybody were to take their TVs out of their houses during this time and not be able to watch TV, I think that everybody would go a little crazy real quick. And so, I think that arts education, being able to continue to bring education of the arts to schools at the different age groups that we hit them all, K through 12, is important. And as we continue to do our thing at TLP at the professional level, it's important to know that arts are important. I believe arts are essential. And I want to encourage everybody to continue, find what you believe in, find what makes you happy, no matter where you are. Let it, if it changes as you get older, that's fine, but find what makes you happy and do it and commit to it. It's a lot of fun. And let me tell you, it keeps you mentally healthy.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Dan, I want to talk a little bit. Oh, sorry, go ahead. What was that?
I'm just saying that's a lot of stuff going on here.
Yeah, it is. It really is. I had to look at my page. I'm like, wow, we got a lot of stuff covering.
Yeah.
I mean, even in this COVID environment, TLP is jamming along.
Yeah.
So, Dan, we talked about bringing over the next several weeks, we want to talk about each individual show that we are bringing to the 2021 season. It is TLP's 60th birthday, and we want to bring out all the stops. We want this to be the celebration for all celebrations. And so what we've decided to do is every week we're going to feature a different show from the season. So last week we brought on Gregory Omar Osborne, the director and choreographer of Ain't Misbehavin', and got a chance to hear him speak about his process. This week we're going to focus on show 2 of the 2021 season, and that is going to be Eleemosynary, written by former TLP alum and nationally recognized playwright Lee Blessing. And today we have Lee on the show, and we're going to talk about Eleemosynary. We're going to talk about his body of work. I mean, his work has been seen on Broadway, off-Broadway, West End, all across the world. And what I'm really excited about this as well, Dan, is that Lee is going to be the first recipient of our inaugural Andy Bro Distinguished Playwriting Award. And this is something that really brings me so much joy, because we're going to be bringing Lee back to the campus next year so that he can give master classes with our resident company. We're going to give him the award and celebrate him and his body of work and Andy Bro and what he did with the theater. And he will be there for opening night to watch the show with the patrons. So, I mean, so many great things are going to happen with that. I'm so excited.
Yes, absolutely.
No,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I mean, he, a little something about Eleemosynary. He's got such a varied body of work, and we're going to talk about specific shows that he's written, including Eleemosynary. But the thing about Eleemosynary that really brought me to that was the story about this 3 generation of women who are estranged from each other, and how the power of family brings them back together again. And it's a 3-person play. It focuses on a grandmother, a mother, and a daughter. And it is so touching, Dan. I actually was introduced to this play when I was in college at Western, and I remember just loving it then. And I reread it recently, and I just ended. It's just so heartwarming. It's funny. It's touching. It reminds me of the importance of family. And I think that Andy would be real proud knowing that we're doing all this, and we're bringing Lee back to where it all started for him.
Very good. I've got a little trailer. Should we play the trailer?
Let's.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, without further ado, let's bring Lee on.
Oh, hello, fellows. How are you doing?
Hey,
Good
Lee,
evening.
how are you?
Good to see you.
Thanks for joining us tonight.
What?
Thanks for joining us tonight.
Oh, you bet. Absolutely. I'm very happy
So
to be
where are you this evening? Are you out on the?
Angeles, where I live.
You are where?
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. So tell us a little bit about where you grew up, how you got interested in doing theater.
Oh, I grew up in the western suburbs of Minneapolis, and upper middle class family. Went to the University of Minnesota, and then later transferred to Reed College out in Oregon. And somewhere along the line, I got the Guthrie got established when I was about 12 or 13 years old. So that obviously fascinated me, and I started to see professional theater there. So I don't know, I just got interested in theater. It seemed to be something I sort of could do. I acted a bit until I was cured of that. And then, I did what all theater people do. They move from acting into whatever it is they do well in theater. And I started writing, so that worked out better.
Well, Lee, was there something that brought you to playwriting specifically? Was there like a mentor or a playwright that influenced you to make you want to, kind of jump into that pool?
Well, I started writing poetry, and then as an undergraduate, I was writing plays, and I got one or two done. And then I went, it was really when I went to the University of Iowa and started working with a fellow named Oscar Brownstein that I began to understand what plays were, how they worked. And it started to really fascinate me, and I started to see that I had the ability to sort of do that, and that's, I think, when I got really intrigued by playwriting.
So tell us about your relationship with Andy Bro and how TLP kind of entered into your realm, into your life.
Well, back in the mid 1970s, Andy used to go to the around to graduate playwriting programs and other drama programs looking to cast his summers. He happened by the University of Iowa, and he always loved playwriting along with every other aspect of theater. So he met me, saw a play of mine done, and he liked it very much. And he said, "Well, why don't you come up to TLP this next summer and as sort of a playwright in residence? I don't know what that even is at TLP," he said, "but let's try it. And you can just hang out and be, a third wheel all summer, or a fifth wheel, and some number wheel. And then you can, at the end, we'll produce the play." So they did as sort of an add-on to the regular season that year. And I had a wonderful time. I enjoyed it so much I came back the next year.
Oh, that's great.
For 2 years in the mid 1970s.
So then, after
what show was it that you ended up doing here at Timberlake?
Life of Billy the Kid, and it's the first play I ever had published.
Oh, you actually developed Billy the Kid at TLP?
Yeah, it was one of the places. Yes, absolutely.
That's great. That's great. Yes, and that was one of your first that was your first published play, yeah?
Yes, it was.
That's amazing. What about was that also the first play what was your first professionally produced play? Was that it?
First professionally produced play might have been, it was probably a play called Old Timer's Game at the Actors Theater of Louisville Humana Festival. in terms of fully professional production. Although Billy the Kid was, whatever level of professional we call TLP was probably the first.
So next year we're producing Eleemosynary 2021 season. Story centers around 3 generations of women. How did that idea come about?
It started as a 10-minute play. I was asked by the Playwright Center in Minneapolis, which is a place I worked a lot right after I finished up at the University of Iowa. And it's a support organization for playwrights. They wanted playwrights to write 10-minute plays. They're going to put them together in a pastiche evening that they could travel around the city. And I wrote a 10-minute version, which is roughly equivalent to the first scene of the play now. Then a year or two later, there was a theater in St. Paul that said, we'd like you to expand the play because we love the play. We'll do a full production of it. And I said, well, all right, will you pay me? And they said, yes. And so it went on from there. And so I actually had to then ask myself, these 3 women I have in this scene, what is their history? How did they get there to this odd scene that they're doing? Who are they to each other, and who are they in their own lives? So I suddenly had to, write kind of, backwards engineer the entire play in a sense. Find, a 50-year history for the play because it sort of takes that long. And not to watch, but it covers, almost 50 years of experience. And it made for a really unusual way to create a play. But it started with an assignment I'd made to myself to write a play with only women in it. And I wrote 2 plays in a row that way, a play called Independence that's set in Iowa, and this play. Before that, I had written 2 plays with a total of 13 male roles. And I said to myself, I really have to see if I can even write women. So that's why I wrote Eleemosynary.
Well, Lee, I was just telling Dan before we brought you on, I had a early introduction to Eleemosynary when I was an undergraduate, and I just fell in love with the play then. And then just rereading it to, decide which one of your amazing plays we want to do here. That show is so character crafted. Each character that you've each woman is so carefully and clearly identified. My question is, when you're crafting, and I'm sure you may, if it goes from play to play or not, but with Eleemosynary, what comes first? Does the character come? Do you like draw out a character in your mind and know their backstory and where they come from, and that informs the dialogue when they actually start speaking, or do you allow the character to speak through you and it just kind of forms as you're writing the piece?
Well, the play before, Independence, had been a play about 3 sisters, and then they kept calling their mother. And pretty soon, their mother actually became a character in the play. And the play moved from their apartment to her house. So, be careful about calling your mother, because it'll become all about your mother at some point. So when I wrote this play, I said, I don't want, 3 sisters this time, on the same generational level. I would like to write a play about 3 generations of women. So that's what this play, that was my assignment for myself with this play. Play also started very strangely compared to other plays of mine. I wrote it the way I put it together the way I would put together a lyric poem from a lot of disparate sources, not knowing what they had to do with each other. So it happens to be a play with a spelling bee in it because I had a poet friend whose journal he said I could look at. I looked at a page of it, and there was a long list of really unusual words that you have to sneak one at a time into poems because people won't have the patience to look up a bunch of words. So that was fascinating. I thought it would be great to have a play with that, words like that in it, but how could you do that? And so I thought maybe a spelling bee, obviously. So that's why that's there. Later, I'd seen a PBS documentary about crackpot inventions of the 1930s, which was the first decade that you could actually film your stupid invention, trying it out and failing with it. And that became interesting. So that became something like that became an element in the play. And there were other things that came from very different sort of sources and inspirations that I just jammed into this 10-minute scene. without having to feel responsible to make it all make sense, in terms of, who these women were to each other and who they had been to each other. And then when I had to expand the play, I suddenly had to invent all of that. So the play is put together differently than any other play I've written.
And the word eleemosynary, which is used throughout the piece, because the character of Echo is the spelling bee. She's the youngest of the three. She's the granddaughter, and she's actually studying to be for the spelling bee championship. Was when you were thinking of titles, how did eleemosynary kind of rise to the top on that?
Well, again, it came from this list of intriguing words that people never use. Eleemosynary is an old Latin word that really is only used in church writings and legal writings today. And it means charitable, or the giving of alms. And I thought, well, given that this is going to be a play about three women being pretty hard on each other, and they're in filial, loving relationships, but they are very hard on each other in their ways. I thought it would be interesting to give them a sort of goal, and us a sort of goal as we watch the play, to look for charitable behavior if we can find it, and that's that sort of becomes the unspoken goal of the piece.
I think one of the most interesting things about writing in general is where the ideas come from. Your play, A Walk in the Woods, about the American ambassador and the Russian ambassador. Where did the idea for that come from?
Oh, that sort of came out of in the mid-1980s. The New York Times was spending lots of time complaining about American playwrights, saying that we wrote too many family plays, and we weren't writing enough international political plays. So, well, what's on their front page? So I took a look at that, and this the whole thing about it was the Reagan era, and they were talking a lot about nuclear arms negotiations in Geneva. And of course, we had a delegation there, and so did the Soviets. So I looked into that, and there was a famous incident called the Walk in the Woods from 1982, in which the head of the American delegation and the head of the Russian delegation got together and just sort of made an agreement personally between the two of them on a walk. And said, well, this aspect of this agreement or this negotiation, why don't we just agree on, and we'll take it back to our governments. And they did, and the government said, stop it, what's wrong with you people? So I thought, now there's an irony, and why don't I try to make a play out of that? So that's where that came from.
Now, A Walk in the Woods was your piece that actually was your Broadway debut as well. And, obviously, when you're in the theater, Broadway is definitely the creme de la creme of where you want to get to. What was that experience like, knowing that your play was going to go to Broadway and then actually seeing it on Broadway? When you write serious plays, which I do for the most part, you're not spending a lot of time asking yourself, will the play go to Broadway? It's Broadway. Back then in the 80s, it was 1988 that it opened on Broadway. More so back then. There were 5 really pretty impressive serious plays done on Broadway that year that were, one more than could be nominated for Tonys, actually, and by American authors. And I don't think you can find that in a contemporary year. They just don't do that many serious plays on Broadway anymore. So I considered it sort of a fabulous vacation, an outing that probably wouldn't be repeated, because it's not really the sort of play I write to, the sort of play that tends to get to Broadway. I've never written a musical, much to my chagrin. And, those are the people who are thinking about Broadway for the most part these days. Well, be careful what you wish for, Lee, because I will definitely loop you in to write a Broadway musical.
Absolutely. We'll do that right away.
I'd like to go ahead, Paul.
Oh, I was just going to say, that down the road was really, when I read that piece, it was really, what was really the irony is that, I found that a lot of the humor came from the Russian delegate on that one. And that was really, what a great way to kind of almost humanize the people, because I think especially in the 80s we had such, stereotypes of what we thought of a specific person, especially from Russia. And I thought that the way you handled that then you navigated through character and you really humanized both characters. That was something that really kind of jumped off of me when you're crafting those characters. What is that process like? I mean, do you seem to have so many layers there. Is that always in the back of your mind and making sure that those characters are three-dimensional, or do you just kind of do a lot of studying and research of the culture? I mean, where do these people come from in your mind?
Well, I grew up during the Cold War, and I was sort of trained to think of Soviets as dark, menacing presences. But luckily for me, I was able to travel to the Soviet Union in 1971 and met some really extraordinary people, including one who certainly would have been a friend anywhere I'd met him. And it allowed me to, think of Russians, in a little more generous and complex a way. So that by the time I wrote the play, I had an instinct that the Russians should be entertaining and cosmopolitan and somebody we relate to very positively, funny, among other things. And so I wrote it that way. And then I realized that really is an American audience's way into the play. If they, start to see it, if they're watching a play and the Soviet is this villain or unpleasant human or stoic, remote character, we're not going to feel invited into the play. We're not going to be curious immediately. And whereas if he's personable, we will be. So, it worked very well for the play to do that. And then I made the American more stiff and stodgy.
Which I loved.
Yeah, it's sort of a fundamental reversal right at the beginning. We don't get to root for the American right away. So that was probably wise. Accidentally wise on my part.
So in your play Down the Road, a husband and wife team up to write a biography of a serial killer. Tell us where you came up with that. How did that generate?
Well, appropriately, I was in the shower. I had an open commission. I could write any play I wanted for the La Jolla Playhouse, and I was in the shower one day, and I thought, nobody's really written a stage play about serial killing. They've written TV movies and that sort of thing, but it would be interesting to write a stage play on that subject. And the second thought I had was there must be no act of violence in the play, because that would just be too easy. You can't write an interesting play if we're waiting for the next time somebody gets stabbed horribly. So I decided to make it about a serial killer who'd already been caught and was in prison, and now was selling his story to a married pair of journalists who had to go down to this horrible part of Florida in the heat and stay in a terrible motel for months, certainly weeks on end, interviewing this awfulest of all possible people. So it becomes a play more about the couple and what they're going through than the killer. Everything he says, every murder he recounts, nobody did all of the things he says he did, but somebody did all of them. So he's a composite killer in that sense. And it makes the play very creepy because you realize you're listening to the acts of violence that actually occurred. Somebody did that to somebody.
And you navigated without even showing violence on stage, which is what I love about that piece itself, because not one time does he, he every now if he snaps, you immediately invented that that the guard right outside the door. And so it's the intensity of the moment of just the exchange between whether it's the husband or wife interviewing the serial killer. And I think that the way you wove that through without actually showing violence, if nothing else, you were trying to have them find empathy for this person, which he clearly never wanted to have. That was very, for me, that was a page turner. That kept for me, that was that kept me engaged.
Yeah. Also, what tends to be the case is serial killers, once they're behind bars, tend to get very calm. They don't continue in their murderous pattern. They're sort of happy, not happy they've been caught, but they're satisfied. They've made their statement to society. So they don't really look to be terribly violent in prison, typically.
Yeah. You had mentioned that La Jolla commissioned you to do this, and it was an open commission. And La Jolla, obviously, at the time, artistic director Des McAnuff, who would direct a lot of your work and shepherd that with you. You know, we at Timberlake, we're starting our new work program, and talk a little bit about to our young playwrights in the audience that might be listening. How important is it, that relationship to have with a not-for-profit, that they're nurturing a playwright, they're being able to give them space to work? How, what is that relationship between a theater and a playwright?
Well, I tell playwrights now about Des McAnuff directed A Walk in the Woods at Yale Rep to begin with, and then almost immediately out at his theater at the La Jolla Playhouse. And then that fall started in rehearsals for Broadway. So we had that whole experience. And then during that period, he said, how would you like to do a commission for next summer? We'll do it in June and I'll direct it. And it can be about anything you want. And I ended up doing 3 of those in 4 years for Des and La Jolla. A play called Two Rooms about the Middle East down the road, and a farce called Fortinbras, which is a continuation play going on from Hamlet, but funny. And they all did really wonderfully well out there. I was extremely happy with all 3 of them. So I tell playwrights now, well, that's how we did commissions in those days. And then they just throw things at me, because now, for the most part, when playwrights get a commission, it's assigned. They tell them what the subject has to be. This is what you're writing about. This is why we want you to write it. And so they feel a little more strapped down than I was. I was actually very free. So theaters don't do that very much anymore. That's very rare. But it's fine, if you find a theater and you find a subject, I've done this as well, that works for both you and the theater, that can be a great experience. And that has certainly happened as well. It's I think it's great to work with the theater, and I've done so with a number of theaters in the past. It has to do with how well do you deal with, on a personal level, the person from the theater, the artistic director or whoever it is that you're dealing with, and if you see eye to eye and you're both interested in the same thing or the same subject matter or whatever, it can be a great experience.
I noticed that a lot in your work, your work seems to really focus on the relationships of your characters, whether they be husband and wife, mother, daughter. When you're crafting your shows, what comes first in your world, story or the relationship you want to kind of focus in on?
That's an interesting question. I'm not sure I've ever posed that question in quite those terms to myself. I know I need both by the time I'm done. I think the thing a playwright looks for first and foremost in a subject is a fresh point of view on it, something that people haven't thought of that much when they think of the subject. The first question I ask is in a sense, what does a prospective audience think about this subject matter? And then the next question I try to ask myself always is, what's wrong with the way they're thinking about it? Because if you can't identify something that's wrong, in a way you don't have anything to say in the play. The play should be about taking them to something they don't expect to see, something that they haven't really considered when considering that subject matter before. And so, I try to do that as much as possible.
Well, going back to
whether the characterization comes first or the story comes first, I think that probably shifts in each project.
Going back to my questions about where did ideas come from, I want to go to your play Body of Water, centering on a husband and wife trying to figure out who and where they are. Where did that idea come from?
Well, that's a very unusual play for me. It's one of those plays where you purposely take a couple of bricks out of the wall of reality that we all think, the reality we think is all around us. A little way that COVID has. We all had this assumption about how the world was, and then COVID came, and now the world's very different, at least for a while. A Body of Water is a play about two people who are about 50 years old who wake up together in a beautiful house, in bed together, nude, and each of them suddenly realizes they don't know who the other one is, and upon waking, and they also realize that they don't know who they themselves are. So the rest of the play is about them trying to figure out who they are. And whether or not they're even married or a couple or anything, you know, or whether this is their house. And a little ways into it, a young woman shows up who they think could be their daughter, or maybe she's something else. And she tells them several different stories about what's going on and who they are. And the problem is they're not sure which to believe. And there's really no way to know. So it's a play about being unsure. It's a play about that sort of attacks the underpinnings of our sense of reality in the first place. So it's a play with a surprising amount of laughs in it, given how fundamentally threatening its premise is. But that play started out. You know, I had the sort of PTSD that a lot of people have from having a tough divorce, and I was in that situation in my life. So I think I'm not terribly surprised. I thought of a play where two people wake up in bed together and don't know who they are. So really, it's sort of a play based in that. I guess in that feeling that somebody has.
When I was reading that play, that was again another one of those page turners for me. And you and I have actually discussed this at length, especially the ending, because this was one of those endings where you actually wrote a couple of different endings.
That was a strange experience. The play was done originally at the Guthrie Theater in Minneapolis, and it was done at Old Globe Theater in San Diego. And then it was done on off Broadway, which is where series plays normally tend to go when they do well. It did fine. It won an award for the best play to open outside of the New York area that year. We got published, but in every production, the last scene was different. I kept rewriting the final scene. There were 15 versions of the final scene. The published version is different from any scene that has ever been performed. And so, ultimately I just kind of had to leave it that way. I was never satisfied with any of them. And years went by and was writing other plays, doing other things, moved from one coast to the other. And then I got a chance a couple of years ago to work on the play at a new playwrights conference, a conference for new work. And I said, well, I know you like the play, but it's an old play. It's published. I've done it. I've won an award. And they said, yeah, but we still like it. Could you maybe change some part of it? Just to give us a chance to do it. And I said, well, actually, it's the only published play I have that I would change because I have a rule on not working on plays past publication. But that one I always hated the last scene. Let me take one more crack at it. So I did, and I made one change, which absolutely solved the entire scene. So the scene works now. It's rather wonderful. Makes the whole play work vastly better than it did. I always thought it was a successful play that didn't work. Now I feel like it's a successful play that does work. So if I can only just remind the entire theater, American theater about that, maybe I'll get some productions.
I
got the publisher to republish it. So in the new version. So I'm very happy.
That's the version that I read, and I remember I called Dan and I said, I love this play so much. It makes me mad because I want more out of it, because it's one of those cliffhangers that leaves you hanging in your, but yet you kind of think, but you're not sure. And it's just, it's the question. And if it's one thing that, one of our jobs as theater storytellers is to get the audience talking about it after the show ends, and I'll bet you that one is a hot topic for after the curtain comes down. The discussions probably just ignite.
I got a production of it here in Los Angeles at Actors Co-op Theater, and you're right. The people love talking about this play once it's over. We had some really wonderful discussions of the play right afterwards. So it's been very satisfying that way.
I know that there's a theater out in New York, off-Broadway theater called Signature Theater, which basically when they do a season, they focus their entire season on one playwright in their body of work. You were selected for that playwright, and your body of work was the season of your plays. What was that experience like, knowing that you were going to be their artist in residence for an entire year?
That was a lot of fun. That was 1992-93. The second year they did it. The first year they started with Romulus Linney because that's how the whole idea started. There were a lot of people in New York, a lot of actors, etc., who really loved Romulus's work and always felt he had not been done well enough or enough in New York City. So they just did a season of his, and it caught on immediately with the critics. And they said, "Well, okay, let's keep going." And so they looked around and they noticed that I had 2 plays done in New York in my whole career. Actually, the first play I had done in New York was on Broadway. The second one was off Broadway, and they at Manhattan Theater Club. And so, but other than that, I had never been done in New York, and I had a number of plays by that time. So they said, "Well, let's do a season of Lee's." So they did 4 plays, and really fine productions of all 4, and they generally did quite well with the critics. And it was a grand sort of time because it felt like there wasn't that much pressure. You just go do the plays. It feels a little bit like you're working in the regions, because there was all this commitment to you and to your work, and they kept asking me if I was happy, which is amazing in New York. No one ever asks the playwright if they're happy in New York. So it's not about the playwright. So anyway, I had a great time. We did Fortinbras, the funny Shakespearean play, and we did 2 Rooms, and we did a new play. Rom had written a new play for them, expressly for them, and so they asked me if I could as well. And I wrote a play called Patient A about AIDS, which did very well as well. So I was very pleased. It was a nice season.
It was a hot topic in the early 90s for sure. That was great. And you said you are so talented at different genres. I mean, you have Fortinbras, which is more of kind of a high comedy. You've got El Imaginario, a family drama comedy. Do you find yourself looking for genres to write in, or does the genre just come out as you decide the piece that as it develops in your mind?
Yeah, I think pretty much once I choose a topic, then I'm asking myself, what kind of play is this? Is this a funny play? Is this a family play? Is this a serious play? Is this a strange play? What is it? And what approach is going to work best to wake the audience up, get the audience involved, and get them to really connect with what I'm trying to say. So plays pretty quickly tell me if they're going to be comedies or tragedies or something in between. And I'm fine with that. I'm happy to write any sort of play along those lines. A Body of Water is as close to an absurdist play as I've written, probably. And I've written sports plays. I've written family plays. I've written political plays. And it's always been sort of a hallmark of what I do, that I'm not afraid to go explore some other area, along not just subject matter, but also a type of play that I'm writing.
You've also written for television and film. Do you find that there is a world that is there a major difference from your point of view, and do you prefer one over the other?
Fundamentally, I'm a playwright. In the 90s, I was out here and I wrote a few open assignments on the TV shows like Homicide: Life on the Street and Picket Fences and things like that. It was so that meant I wasn't in the writer's room. They were open assignments, so they were assigned outside of their staff. That doesn't happen anymore in television, typically. So my experience was different from the average television writer now. I've been married to a playwright since 2006 who in 2007 started writing television. My wife, Melanie Marnich, has been writing television steadily since then. And I've learned a great deal more about writing television, but I've also learned that it's what she does, I'm not sure I do or want to do. She is a tremendous television writer, but she loves being in a room with a lot of people and working through all sorts of ideas. She likes writing things that never get done and get thrown out immediately. You know, she has just got an enormous ability to take all of that and keep producing wonderful work, whether it gets on air or not. You know, and that's true for any television writer. They have to really be prepared to just put aside all sorts of beautiful things they write. And I'm probably too selfish to do that. You know, I like to feel like if I get something done, I want somebody to go do it, you know?
Right.
So
well, during this COVID time, you know, you've got, I mean, I say that right now for all the writers, this is the time, right? You know, you're, you know, isolated, you have to isolate, right? Is there anything that you're working on right now that you can share with us?
Oh, I'm writing a two-person play right now. It will be the 6th two-person full-length play that I've written. A Walk in the Woods is one of them, but for some reason I enjoy that duologue form. They're a little tricky. You have to find ways to keep them entertaining, but because the audience soon realizes they're only going to get 2 people to look at, and they're going to hear the same 2 people talking to each other all night. So you have to find ways to keep that fun. But I've always loved dialogues of that sort. You know, even when I was an undergrad reading pieces, it's not a play, but it's a piece called Rameau's Nephew. You know, which is an Enlightenment work in which 2 people are just talking to each other for about 150 pages or whatever it is. And for some reason, I'm always fascinated by that. I feel like I can get a lot out of that form. So right now I'm writing a 2-person play.
Well, I definitely look forward to seeing that.
Sorry.
I look forward to seeing it, reading it.
Thank you very much.
I have a comment here I want to bring up. Joe Titus. Joe is one of our board members. He says, I thought a play about a serial killer might have come from stories learned at a particular summer camp experience.
Well, actually, my experience at TLP did not really resemble Friday the 13th in any way.
Okay.
It was, I had a much better time than that.
Well, speaking of that, tell us a bit about what your living arrangements here, you know, just kind of what it was like. In fact, what year were you out here?
I believe it was the summers of 1975 and 1976. Okay. And I had started at Iowa in the fall of '74. So I'm pretty sure it was those 2 years. I had a great time while I was at TLP. They didn't, you know, I was sort of there with no assignment. You know, they put me in the same housing that everybody else was in. You know, and you can go back and open up your, I don't know what your archives have from that era, but you know, we were in simple cabins and quite comfortable. You know, everybody looked at me and said, what is it exactly you do? And somebody tried to get me to build a platform in the shape of a rhombus. And that took me about 4 days. And then they gave it to someone else. Thank God. So, you know, there were things that they tried, you know, but they realized that somebody said I was a dramaturg. There was not much they could do with that. You know, they just, you know, so I was just hanging around for the most part. I do remember, maybe it was in the '76. I was on stage a couple of times. Andy had me in The Devil's Disciple because I had a full beard. He could make me a member of the Highland Guards or something, you know. So I got to wear a kilt on stage and just be in the background with the British military in The Devil's Disciple. That you know, I didn't get in too much trouble there. I was in oh my goodness, what is that one? Camelot. I was in Camelot. I had a few roles in that, a couple of roles in that. Again, just swelling a scene. No, I don't think they gave me any significant lines.
I think that Jane Howdishaw was there one of the years you were there too.
He was there one year, I think the first year, and it was fantastic. As we all know, it's a superlative actor, and it was wonderful to watch her back then and get to know her a little bit. I didn't see her from decades after that, and then suddenly I'm living in New York, and there she is, making her way, striding confidently into some stardom in New York. Doing brilliant work. I saw her in a couple of plays, and she was she's a treat to watch. She's a wonderful actor.
Yeah,
she's great. Well, Lee, thank you so very much for taking the time and being with us tonight, sharing us the history of your work. I say this, I've said this to you. I am such a huge fan of your work. I am such a huge fan to know that you come from a TLP background. You're a TLP alum, and we are so very honored to honor you with the Andy Bro Distinguished Playwright Award next season with Ella Mocenary, and we look forward to bringing your show and you back to TLP.
Oh, thank you so much. It really is an honor to receive an award with Andy's name on it. He was
very much looking forward to meeting you in person next summer.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you for spending the evening with us.
Okay, thank you very much.
You take care.
All right, you too.
Bye. Thanks, Lee.
Well, that was a very interesting evening. I found our forays into speaking with Gregory last week and Lee tonight extremely illuminating and a lot of fun.
One of the things that a lot of people might not know, but when you get with artists that have a different point of view or come from a different background, especially playwrights that they're the ones, it's coming from their being, their mind, their experience, and you see it on the page. With someone like Lee, I remember reading his work and thinking, the man, the human, is so far distance. I get to know him as a playwright, his words, and then to be able to meet him and talk to him, it's such a wonderful opportunity. It really makes what we do, Dan, that much more special when we're able to really have conversations with the people that created the work that we're doing.
Absolutely. And next week we're going to be featuring our world premiere show, What a Wonderful World, the third show in the season, and we'll have some surprises for next week. Right, Paul?
Absolutely. We just have to figure out what they're going to all be, Dan.
Right. All right. Take care. Have a great week. We'll see you in a day or so.
All right. Take care, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. See you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week.